I am the Highland scribe Cheryl L. Hudson, storyteller. I am about to begin. Are you ready? I am the Highland scribe, scribe to the stones, to the winds, to the bloodlines that walk unseen. Come closer, closer still. You see, the fire's warm. But this tale tonight, well, this tale runs cold. Now you see, my grandfather never told this story in the daylight. No, it always came after dark, when the fire started burning low and the winds, well, they started whispering through the eaves. He'd lean forward, eyes sharp in the shadows, and say, "Well now, lass, there's things on the border roads that, well, dinna care what century it is. Ken, things that wait." He said it happened late November, sometime in the 50s. It was bone deep cold. Fog was creeping in like it had fingers. Air was sharp and tasted like rust. Now, he'd been up in Newcastleton fixing a collapsed roof with his pal, and by the time they'd hammered in the last nail, well, the sun was nothing but a memory, and the hills were gone to dusk. So he took the long road back, the B6357 near Bonchester Bridge. Coils like a snake that doesna ken its deed, he would say. Now you see, the trees on that road, they crowd close, and that night, well, the fog rolled between them like smoke from a fire that you canna see. And that's when he saw him, just past the bend, dead centre of the road. A horseman stood, moving slow, unnaturally slow, like a puppet dangling upon frayed strings, drenched, wrapped in a tattered grey cloak, hat wide, hiding his face. His head was bowed. The horse, he always just paused. They weren't just pale. They looked like they'd been drained, like the colour had been leached frae their very flesh. When he lifted his head, his eyes were that milky white. They were blindly staring, locked on to my grandfather. Then came the sound. Nae hoofs, nae that clean clippity clop that ye hear, more like a dragging thud, heavy, wet, like something being hauled. He braked hard. His bike skidded, coughed, and then died. He tried to restart. Nothing. Again and again he tried. Nothing. Then, as he looked up, there stood the rider. Just ahead of him, silent, but still. And then he moved. Raised an arm, slow and deliberate. A hand slid from his sleeve, skeletal in appearance, as white as a bone that's been left in snow. But he didn't point forward. No, he pointed to the left, towards the woods. where even the fog was hidden back. Now, the trees looked like they were waiting, breathing. Grandfather said something got inside his head. No a thought, more of a feeling, a weight behind the eyes, a pull in his chest. He stepped off his bike and his foot touched moss. And then, crying. A child's cry, far off in the distance, but close enough to make him freeze cold. He turned. No one. He could see no one for miles on this road. But the crying, it grew louder and louder. It was wet and broken. And right behind his shoulder, he spun again. The road, still empty. The rider was gone. But the crying still growing louder. And the cold, it poured out of those woods like a tidal wave. My grandfather took to his feet and he ran. He left his bike lying. His boots were slipping upon the wet road, fog blinding him. And behind him, the crying rose, getting louder and louder, until it was no so much more of a cry than a scream wrapped in static. Then a light, a flicker in the dark, a window, the Rose Hall Inn. Now you see, the landlord, well, he was as old as stone, cloudy-eyed and razor voice. Never asked my grandfather a question as he rushed in through the doors. No, just poured him a whiskey and said, "You're lucky, man." He pointed, did he know? Luckier still, you never followed him. And then he continued. Had a name, you ken. Callum Riddle. He was a Jacobite courier, or so it said. See, he vanished Dunlawn Road. See, the redcoats hunted him down. Some say they hung him, buried him in the peat. Others say he never died at all. Just kept riding. And now, well, now he comes for lonely travellers on the road who are tired, guilty of something, or just simply lost. And when he points, it's nae a warning. It's an invitation. I mind one lad that stopped in here before he headed off, he said. One traveller laddie. He walked into those woods after pointing. And all they found was his coat, hanging fae a branch, like it had been placed there. And hoof prints. Oh aye, we found hoof prints, you ken, leading into the stream that should have been frozen solid. Aye, there's been many, many a traveller who's come in here. And we've told them no to go and follow the crying. But they do. You see, Grandad never went back for his bike. They found it weeks later, half buried and rusted. Headlamp shattered like it had seen something far too bright. Keys still in the ignition. But this is the part that stuck with me. You see, he never heard the horse leave, only the crying. And even years later, when the fire was low and the wind would hit just right, he'd go quiet and stare out the window and whisper. He's still out there, you ken, somewhere between Bonchester and Thorn Trees, waiting, pointing. I am the Highland Scribe, scribe to the stones, to the winds, to the bloodlines that walk unseen. Join me next time when the fire's lit again for another tale. Sleep tight, wanderers.